YouTube, warbles on a lot here. Those of you who've been following my channel will be aware that I'm pretty well invested into solar panels. These are the solar panels that run my hut. These are the solar panels which are sort of gradually, slowly reconditioning the second-hand batteries out of a golf cart, which are slated to go into the pyramid to replace the existing set of batteries with which I run my hut. 8 years ago, I put a 5-watt omnidirectional low drag solar array onto my 1800cc 1983 Subaru touring wagon, and it saved about 1.5 litres of fuel per week. And then 7 years ago, I put a 20-watt panel onto my son's Subaru Brumby. Not this Subaru Brumby, this is his spare parts pile, which has long since been superseded when he traded his Brumby in on a Rodeo. But when I put a 20-watt panel atop my son's Subaru Brumby, he was a first-year Apprentice Auto-Electrician, and he let me do it anyway, because it turned out to save him about 2.2 litres of fuel per week. So I then really went to town on an enclosed, ventilated, faceted, streamlined aerofoil built around a 30-watt gallium arsenide solar panel, incorporating ram scoops on the underside behind the leading edge, as well as blast tubes blowing on the underside of the trailing edge through boundary layer airflow control slots. So not only was it aerodynamically neutral at 90 kilometres per hour on the highway at night, during the day it functioned as a solar thermal ramjet. Apart from the fact that the solar panel, via a solar battery charge controller, ensured that the battery was full every time I went to start the engine. And what that meant was that the alternator, 2-to-1 step-up belt driven from the crankshaft, i.e. it's got a torque multiplier drive, had nothing to do unless and until the sun went down and the headlights came on. And because I live 15 kilometres out of town, and therefore my average engine run time was 6.5 minutes, which is approximately enough time for a belt-driven alternator on a motor car engine to replace 75% of however much charge deficit there is, it meant that my battery was stabilising at 70 to 75% charge, 25 to 30% flat, and thus 30% of my daily fuel burn was going into creating the torque to turn the crankshaft and operate the drive pulley running the step-up drive belt to the alternator. It turned out that I managed to save 5.33 litres per week, 266 litres per year. It's about 3/4 of a tonne worth of greenhouse gases prevented from emitting from my exhaust pipe on this car with this driving regime, living here. So after that, my son let me have a go at putting a 30-watt wooden framed SunFoil, the Mark V, onto his turbocharged diesel 4-door 4-wheel drive Holden Rodeo. And it's got the same panel up there, but I've taken the wooden framing off and brought it up to the Mark 8 standard. Here we see the Mark 8 on the roof of my Subaru Forester, and as you can see, it is greatly simplified in comparison to the Mark III. Whereas the Mark III took me about a month to do the sheet metalwork and pop rivetry. One of these Mark 8s goes together in 2.5 hours to fabricate the brackets and fit them, and it takes another perhaps half an hour to fit onto the vehicle. And if you know what you're doing and you're prepared to wire it up yourself, okay, that's what it'll cost you. If you don't know what you're doing and you're going to go to an auto-electrician, I went to my son and I got him to do this job, wire it up, and then tell me what he would charge somebody else. It's a $190 job to wire up your mounted SunFoil. So you buy the solar panel, you buy the angle bracket, you make the brackets, you fit the thing to the car, you go to the auto-electrician, and then they'll charge you about $190 to fit it up. That's assuming that you've already bought and fitted the solar battery charge controller. Okay, so why is this video called Double Parallel SunFoils? Well, that would be because today is my son's birthday, and therefore thus and because Daddy Warbles has spent the past couple of days turning a pair of 40-watt solar panels into a pair of 40-watt Mark 8 SunFoils. And at this point, the conversion process for both of them as a matched pair has involved 5.5 hours. For those of you who are interested, there are 39 1/4-inch holes on 1/2-inch centres across the trailing facet of each one of these. All the holes have been drilled with a lithium-ion battery-powered 18-volt drill, and all the brackets were hacksawed by hand. 3,600 strokes at 60 strokes to the minute. So yeah, you're looking at literally 1 hour of putting the hacksaw through 50mm by 50mm by 2mm thick aluminium angle bracket. And these are not to go onto my vehicle, they're to go onto my son's workshop truck atop his forward toolboxes. He already has a pair of 150-watt solar panels on his aft toolboxes, feeding the deep cycle battery which runs his air compressor and power tools. This pair are for the engine battery. These are your actual proper SunFoils to reduce fuel consumption. Today's the day that he turns 28. So I've got the drill, the rivets, the tools, the pop riveting pliers, and the next step, assuming that his truck's at the workshop, is to go into town and rivet these things to the top of his toolboxes. And look at that. They even fit in the back of the Forester. Right, so Daddy Warbles, 30-watt gallium arsenide Mark 8 SunFoil. Matt Attacker Sky Scootus, young fella me lad, the Warbles, 30-watt gallium arsenide Mark 8 SunFoil. And the young fella me lad's workshop truck, 150-watt panels on the back toolboxes, 40-watt panels on top of the front toolboxes. From the ground you'd hardly know, but once you get up above it, you can see that all the toolboxes have solar panels on them. This 150 plus this 150 feeding the deep cycle storage batteries, feeding the fridge, the air compressor and the inverter for any power tools. And this pair of Mark 8s top the forward toolboxes, giving 40 watts at 24 volts for the engine battery, the one that runs the starter motor and the headlights and all the usual things that it takes to make the workshop truck into a proper fella mobile thing. So, as promised, double parallel SunFoils. Wobbles on like the YouTube. Ciao.